Hello and welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about a very important topic. We're going to be talking about preference versus negligence. And what I mean by that, to start off with, let me recount a story of the back when I was first hiking the Appalachian Trail back in 2013. I kept hearing about this group. It was a group of 3 to 4 people, and they were very peculiar. I only saw a photo of them once, and oh my, to say the least. So imagine as you will. There are a group of people. They spend 5 years planning out how they want to hike the Appalachian Trail. And this is a religious group, or at least I was told they were a religious group, and I don't know what denomination. None of them had tech fabric when they were starting the trail. And what that means is their clothes will not dry quickly. And it's probably heavy clothes. So I'm thinking wool or cotton. I am told they had no blanket. They might have had one blanket for all of them. One of them carried an axe. I don't think they had a backpack. They might have had like a duffel bag or something. They had. I imagine. I can't imagine they didn't have anything to carry anything with them. They did not bring any food. They did not, like, there was no food with them. Their plan was to hunt and capture all their food as they were hiking through the trail, which is one. I don't. There's rules on hunting, and I don't know what they are. It varies state by state, how you can capture animals and do that. And they didn't have, like, they had an axe. That's what they had with them, as opposed to for weapons for hunting. I imagine they were going to try to capture something with like little snares. I don't know what their plan was. They also didn't believe in money, which means they didn't have any money. They didn't have any provisions. They didn't have any sleeping bags. They didn't have sleeping pads. This group was dubbed the Fellowship, and they also had a small dog with them. If that doesn't just put the full icing on the cake. So these 3-4 people with heavy gear that doesn't dry, no sleeping gear, maybe a blanket for all of them, one blanket, not really able to carry anything. They are carrying a really heavy, like, hatchet or axe. I'm not sure which it was. Just unnecessary things that just adds to how ridiculous someone could prepare to hike the entire Appalachian Trail. And people were very kind to these people. They gave them like candy bars, Cliff bars, like energy bars. They gave them food because they knew that they were going to be in a lot of trouble. The picture I saw was kind of like, they looked like kind of nerdy people a little bit, but like one had glasses, but they were covered in like their clothing was brown. I was told they got 30 miles into the trail and had to be taken off because they got hypothermia. And this was at the start in March, at the end of March. And that's the most extreme case of negligence in preparation and gear and anticipation for how you are going to do anything out on the trail. So I want to say this is made up. Like, I just made this. This was a real group of people that thought that they could go out and hunt their food and gather berries. And like, you can gather berries. You're not going to gather enough berries. You're going to spend your whole day gathering berries just to have the food for that one day. And that depends on the season. It's very negligent to go out there with that kind of expectation. So when I'm talking about preference versus negligence, I'm talking about you're going out into the wilderness, and day hikes, the risk is very low. There's levels of risk. The more miles you do, the higher the risk. The more difficult the trail, the higher the risk. If you're just doing like just a few miles on a trail you know well, that is popular, meaning that people frequent it enough that if something happens to you, they can stumble across you and give you aid, because that is very important. Because if you are in a seclusive trail, that drastically increases the risk that you have to face. So what I'm saying here is, in preparation and gear, there is a threshold towards negligence. You have to know what the weather's going to be, because the weather is probably going to be the biggest risk factor for you out there. You got to know what time of year, what the usual weather for that area. All right. So anyways, I had a point to make between preference and negligence. Let's talk about when I started to hike the Appalachian Trail. My pack was about 40 pounds because I was carrying a lot more food than I needed. I first tried to hike with a Hennessy hammock, which didn't work out for a variety of reasons. I was hiking in blue jeans, but they were made from hemp. So like, I was told at the outfitter that it's kind of like it's better than blue jeans, but only a little bit. It's very marginally better. And I had I built up a lot of resources. I saved up a lot of money so I could hike the trail. So I definitely had that. I had sleeping bags, and I had liners to help me with the cold, because I knew it was going to be cold. And it was, because 4 days in, we got snow, and I'm at the outfitters, but I was sleeping outside in my hammock when we got gales of wind that was just shaking my my rainfly, which was pretty much just a diamond shape with 2 tent posts and 2 posts on the trees. So it was going like whoop, 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 whoop all freaking night. And then it got more cold, and I just kept on lowering my hammock, and then eventually I'm on the ground, and like the rainfly is just being held up by the trees. And I have my air mattress on the ground, and I'm like huddled in here, and I'm just like, I'm miserable. But I was safe. In actuality, my gear choices, you could technically hike with them. I ended up adding things, because right then at the outfitter, I sent home my my blue jeans. I sent home my Hennessy hammock, and I bought myself a new tent, a new pair of pants that were my ex officio, which I wore for 8 years after that. I mean, like, not them specifically. They eventually died, but I had just love the pants. So I just kept on buying the same ones over and over again. And they lasted me a long time. And I cannibalized a few because sometimes you get holes in them and then I use up for patches. And yeah, there's a preference. I was safely uncomfortable. That's the preference part of it. Like, you can hike in blue jeans. You can hike the whole Appalachian Trail in blue jeans if you want to. You're gonna be more miserable doing so. But like, not having the resources to, like, you don't believe in money. You don't have like sleeping gear. You don't have a shelter. It's like you could technically hike the Appalachian Trail without a designated shelter, because there are shelters. There's 3 walled shelters, and you can just have a sleeping pad and your sleeping bag, as long as you can make it there in time. I don't recommend it, because your tent is like your apartment. It is your own kind of like safe spot. It gives you privacy. When you sleep in the shelters, the huts, you have people who are snoring. You have people like right next to you. Like, it's imagine looking at my bed here. That bed could fit probably 4 hikers. 3 comfortably, 4 if it's a cold night and you just need, and it's raining, you just like, we got to get people in here. It's hard to say what you really need. There's a threshold towards safety. Knowing what you're going to get yourself into, knowing that it's going to be colder than you expect, having money reserves helps a lot in case you do need to do a resupply. Testing your gear is very important. Testing your gear in that environment is very important. Like, going out and sleeping in a night on the mountains to make sure that you can sleep in it, and then you get a much better idea of what you need along the way. Absolutely, because like, you're gonna have people tell you one thing, you're gonna have me say one thing, and then you go out there and you're like, oh, I listened to all these things, and it's like, and then you find out that you wish you brought something you could have used, and now you're like 30 miles from anywhere, and you can't exactly get to an outfitter. So yeah, try, test, and get experience. Like, the more experience you have, the more you test out your gear, you make sure you're comfortable with what you have. Find out what it's like to be wet in gear. Yeah, you learn real quick what makes you miserable, and you're like, oh, I don't like that. And that's gonna like help you have the most comfortable time hiking, is just that experience, testing out, knowing what it's like to be wet, knowing how you get yourself dry. Yeah. And that's kind of like the preference versus negligence. It's just, it comes down to experience, not going crazy about stuff, and doing your research and doing proper research. I don't know what else to say. All right. Well, you have a wonderful time. I will see you all later.